sports, and they revive schools and colleges sports at all levels, including primary and junior high schools, in consultation with relevant stakeholders. That's a big vision, if you ask me. But then we'll go back to that conversation because I remember so well back in the day, not JSS, but secondary school and the uni level, you had people who came through and got admission because they had, some sports background and they represented the schools. I mean, that was when in Accra, for those of us in Accra, Intercore was a big deal.
Indeed.
Super zonals, and then interregionals, and then there was a national competition, and you had, the best of the best. Some of who later were drafted either into the national team, or some who were drafted into the security services to go and play with them and all of that. You don't seem to see that enthusiasm now, especially with the Intercore. Maybe because we are away from the action, but the Intercore. I mean, whenever there's Intercore, you actually feel that enthusiasm running all around us. I remember my days. We used to have Intercore at the Accra Sports Stadium, and it was a big deal. The Accra Sports Stadium. That was where you used to have the Intercore.
Around what time would they have it?
Well,
what month was
sometimes
it?
I don't remember, but I think it was usually the second term towards the long vacation that they had Intercore, and it was.
Because I think they just might have done one, just ended at the Accra Sports Stadium. I saw lots of young ones.
It was a big deal. I mean, you had people on the tracks running. You had javelin. You had pole vault. You had shot put. You had volley, you had all those things, football, everything else. This was at the Accra Sports Stadium. Later, I think it was moved to the Elwak Sports Stadium because they thought people were misbehaving and all of that, and also to pave way for some renovation works that had been done at the Accra Sports Stadium. But it was a big deal, and you would find that there was always an influx of people from the coach team getting onto their their school teams because they were playing Munchendi and all of that. You don't hear all that buzz these days. And the greats that Michael Essien, Asamoah Gyan, Stephen Apial, they came from that system. All right? That system where they had codes and they were playing in communities, and all the players had to for food and lunch was gari, soakings and some milk, and they ate together as a team and all of that. All the mates surrounding it, etc. You don't find that, then, and it doesn't surprise me that our showing on the global stage, really isn't what it used to be, because people are now, I don't know. Well, Franklin Kujo is the president of Imani Africa, founder and leader. Let's joins us now on the phone line. Franklin, good morning. Thank you for your time, sir.
Good morning. How are you?
I am greater than Accra. This youth manifesto by the NDC. First of all, your initial comments. What do you think of it?
Sorry, please go ahead. Say that again.
I'm asking the youth manifesto that was recently launched by the NDC. What do you think of it?
Well, certainly, there's nothing wrong with. I think they chose the right moment to launch it, given that it was the Youth Day, and it was also instructive that they launched it more or less. Well, the themes from the manifesto, some were discussed at the launch, I think at the tertiary level, and then also at the community level. That interaction with was it the boxing arena?
Yes, Bukom Boxing Arena. That's later.
Was quite a show. So a number of things came up, right? I think you guys have discussed it at length, but maybe it's also. I mean, I could repeat a few of them.
So now the conversation for me about education is big. Improve secondary education by ensuring sustainable funding for the free senior high school education, completing the construction of e-blocks and expanding infrastructure to guarantee access to students. I mean, free SHS has become the big elephant in the room. Everybody now is talking about it. Review, not to review, where we go from here and all of that. John Mahama says he wants to ensure that it is sustained using, trusted funding sources for a senior high school education. Easier said than done, somebody says. What do you think?
Well, first of all, I think he's expanded the universality of the promise Now he says that the people in private SHS would also benefit.
That's correct.
Which has been the argument of the NPP anyway, that no means testing, everybody should just benefit. I would have thought, really, that the NVC would stand its grounds on the issue of targeting and making sure that the review would encompass that, so that there will be some savings for some of the other lofty things they want to do now with the tertiary sector. There's an internal inconsistency there, isn't it? Right? When you say that at the level 100, you are going to ensure that there's no fee paying, right? And so you want to extend that, hoping that the second, third, and fourth years, something else would have kicked in for the students to hang on to. It's a bit difficult to understand the two. Once you say the free SHS must be targeted, but you want to expand it, you've not said whether you target needy people at the private sector, in private SHS. You've not said so. Now you are saying that you want to even expand the free to tertiary level 100. Well, and so bearing in mind the inconsistency, I think they have to answer that question. I've heard a number of explanations, but I'm still not convinced. But whatever it is, it has to be said. It has to be explained. The other question, I don't know whether, but that's my view, by the way, on this particular issue about the free SHS and then the level 100 payouts payouts academic fee, facility user fee for level 100 students. I think the technical universities apparently are not part of it, right? Mm-hmm. Because I saw a post. I don't know how true it is.
Right.
That the technical universities are saying, well, they are happy because they will be enjoying. And I heard one of the NDC operators said, well, you guys are not part of it. And I was wondering, because this is our tertiary anyway.
I see. Well, let me welcome Divine. He's a senior program officer, Africa Education World. Divine, welcome. Good morning. How are you?
I'm fine. Thanks for having me.
Great. Now, Divine, you tell me, have you put the NDC's youth manifesto promise on education to the litmus test yet from the Africa Education Watch perspective?
Yes, good morning to your listeners. We have, and we realize it has a merit for the very fact that if you look at the data, you realize that on average about 50 to 60% of candidates that get application or admitted into tertiary institutions do not honor their admissions, and largely because they do not have the financial muscle to be able to settle their admission fees to be able to continue their tertiary education. So about 50 to 60% of them do not progress to or not honor their admission.
Right.
So there is a merit there. And also for the very fact that we have envisaged to attain 40% of gross tertiary enrollment ratio by 2030.
Right.
But currently we are off track just because we are not seeing a good number of the students enrolling, also because of the financial constraint. In fact, if you look at the first million STEM strategic plan of the country for education, which ended in 2021, we're supposed to have between around 22%, but we missed that in 2022, where we did around 20%. 2024, we're supposed to be on 26% gross tertiary enrollment, but currently we are doing around 26% compared to, 22%, as against a target of 26%. So there's a need for us to do something to improve access to be able to meet our gross tertiary enrollment of 40% by 2030. So this is an opportunity that will be able to improve access to tertiary education, and we can be on track. But our only challenge is about the wholesale approach. Strongly, we believe that it has to be targeted.
Okay.
Like that, as we have the position on the traditional high school that it has to be targeted. We still have the same position that it cannot be wholesale.
But Mr. Ken Oforiatta, in the early days before the full implementation of the free SHS program, had raised this matter. I mean, I think he sat down with Bernard and raised a conversation that he cannot take his children to school and leave them there because he can afford it. He was literally shut down because everybody said that, look, shut up. We don't want to discriminate. Franklin had earlier mentioned that, look, private schools were exempt from this. And I sat down with Dr. Yao when he was Deputy Minister for Education. He says private schools are not part of the conversation. So that's discrimination right there. But Ken Oforiatta was shut down because he actually had proposed that. Do you get a sense that the government now will budge and say, okay, let's do means testing and all of those things you're talking about?
That would be the best way to go. We have to get to that point of mean testing to know those that are actually in the free senior high school. And of course, should the NDC come to power, they should also be able to mean test, to be able to know that for the tertiary one that they are promising. It is not that we can't do it. I strongly believe that we have the means to identify those that are actually in the free senior high school program and those that will need the free tertiary should the NDC come into power. I think that's the best thing to do. If we want to promote equity in education, then we can't continue to do equality. Equality does not promote equity. You still continue to give some people undue advantage over the others. So to ensure policy efficiency, there's a need to target those that actually need it. And I think this is a pro-poor policy. So it should be approached like that, not a wholesale. And people continue to raise arguments. How do we identify those that actually need it? And I think it shouldn't be even a question, because if we really want to do it, we can. Because if we are able to determine those that actually need their livelihood empowerment against poverty program, those that actually need the disbursement, if we are able to mean test and identify those that need it, and we are disbursing money every 2 months to them, why can't we do it for the education? We can do it. So I think that if we put our best mind together, there are several propositions from different quarters, from the academia, civil society organizations. There are different propositions. At least over the years, I have heard at least 5 propositions. And if we really want to do it, we can put all these minds together and see which one actually works, or we can find a point of convergence and see what works for the country. So I will encourage the NDC. They have to. The very good thing I hear about this particular policy proposition is that they say it is still open for fine-tuning.
Right.
So it means that this is not the end. They are open for discussion, and for me, I'm happy about that particular position, because for the free SHS, we have seen entrenched positions. There wasn't any room for discussion around it. Right. There was no readiness to listen to anyone on what should be done alternatively. So I must commend the NDC for making the point that they are open for dialogue, they are open for discussion around to fine-tune this particular proposition should they come into power. So that position for me, let me commend them for that.
Okay. Let me bring you Franklin. Franklin, we're talking about the dream of the politician, but what is the taxpayer's burden? Should we be worried about it as well?
Well, politicians typically do not really reflect when they are spending other people's money. So the question really is, are they doing this because they really love us or because they just want votes? It's a good question to ask. And I think at the end of the day, we're supposed to be asking ourselves, what are the qualitative or quality outcomes of all these interventions anyway? For me, it's not the fact that everybody has been given access to education that matters. It is important, I agree. But are we looking at the outcomes as in the value addition to the GDP of this economy, the skill set that will be trained, the skill set that will be the end product of these policies? I think we should be very concerned about those as well. But as it is now, yes, we are concerned that the only reason why I'm concerned is that my cities will be utilized for this purpose, and it must add value to the economy. Otherwise, it would have been wasteful. I don't think that's what we want to do as a country. And to the extent that leaders are not ready to do these futuristic projections, it's quite nauseating and annoying, because in the world of the AIs and the world in which we are right now, young kids all over the world, in schools all over, are even able to project the impact of whatever decisions they make now. I don't know how grown-ups cannot do that, but especially they're using other people's money.
I see. Now, frankly, you tell me, these things that it's supposed to be a battle of ideas, a contest of ideas. And now, for example, in the area of sports development, we were discussing that before you got in. The sports portion of our education seems to be lacking the background, and we saw the poor showing that we did at the Olympics. Could we have done better if we had focused a bit more on sports?
Well, isn't the sports we do today is astroturf? I don't even know where that nonsense actually came from, really. I have to think that all people need is astroturf. Put astroturf. They inflate the cost along the way as well. And then make everybody run around astroturfs. That's what development. Or you put up all these wonderful buildings, infrastructure, and nothing happens. Look at how much we claim we spent on, the Africa Games. That figure has been inflated by the way. And to spend about $200 million or $250 million to host these games, there's no discernible plan to ensure that we feed these events, or sports events that will be held there with young blood, with young people who should be supported through school. In terms of scholarships, and then also have time for the sports. But nothing is happening. Look at the Olympics. I don't know. Well, we did some showing, but almost all those who contested on our behalf had been training outside. I don't understand. Even boxing, there's just not single sports which we are excelling. Not even football. We're not at the Olympics, So we are not doing well at all, and I don't understand this type of education system. I don't understand. The whole thing is focused on passing, government buying pass papers. Those things are so backward and nauseating. When I hear that government is paying money to buy pass, so the whole focus is on students must pass exam. Go and then this year we had the highest number of people who pass exam. That's not education. That's a contest. It's not even a beauty contest of ugly people. It's not. It's a contest of damn people. I don't understand why I should have a contest over how many people pass in Waxy, how many people pass GSS, then, hey, I did more than you. I am Krasinyama. You guys say that better in a sense. I'm sorry. Sometimes I get off I find a bit. We are not going anywhere.
It gets to you.
With this type of thinking.
Divine, let me bring you in. Are we raising our children right in terms of our education policy? Because if you look at the policies that the MPP is heavy on free SHS, we're talking about first year, academic user fee free from the NDC. We're talking about pushing more money into free SHS. But are we really giving them the kind of education that will give them a competitive edge on the global front with the proper global outlook?
All right, thank you. I think it is now that we are trying to reposition our education system to properly address issues that are emerging when it comes to the fourth industrial revolution. I must admit that the review of the curriculum is one of the major steps, because if you look at international standard, at least every 5 years, we're supposed to take a look at our curricula. But the previous objective-based curriculum has been implemented for over 10 years without even a single review. And if you look at most of the things or the content, I realize that we're outdated. We were teaching things that we shouldn't be teaching in the 21st century. So a review of the curriculum at the basic education level and that of the junior high school, the primary and junior high school, is a positive step to be able to ensure that we are also going to catch up with the world when it comes to things that are responsive to the fourth industrial revolution or the world of work that we are in now. The challenge now is how we capacitate teachers to be able to give these skills and knowledge to our students. That is the middle thing, because while we may be having a good curriculum, we have still not positioned our school environment to be able to provide the needed help that these students need. Because you look at the classrooms, still not matching up to standard. Students are still sitting on the floor. We're talking about 2.3 million people that are still not have been writing and sitting places, and schools still being under trees and dilapidated structures, making it very difficult for teachers to be able to have a good engagement with learners. You know, we talk about what we call differentiated learning, which means that you should teach to students' ability other than their grade level. But the materials for them to even implement those differentiated learning are not there. Teachers have training on that, but they get into the classrooms and they do not have the learning resources. We've done a new curriculum 4 years into it, or even over 4 years. We still don't have the full complement of the textbooks that are needed for full implementation or for effective take-off of the curriculum implementation. It's recently that senior high schools are now taking delivery of their textbooks, having followed the introduction of the Common Core program at that level. And if we want to talk of ICT, we don't even want to talk about it at all, because look at the data, 13% of junior high, only 13% of junior high school are having functioning labs and 15% at the primary school level. So what do we may be trying to even review our curriculum to respond to well, or to make our learners competitive? I'm not sure we have provided the needed environment that will support the curriculum implementation where our learners can have this good. For me, I'm focusing on the basic level, because I believe that is where we have to strengthen, then we can progress to the secondary level, to the tertiary level. So while we may be having good intentions at the basic education level, I'm not seeing a commitment of resources to tackle some of the issues that come up when it comes to quality. And I've mentioned some of them already, the teaching and learning resources that actually needed to be in place, and then the learning environment. I'm not seeing commitment at that level. So, and it's really sad that so far both political parties have not had anything concrete of what they want to do when it comes to the primary and then the junior high school, basic school at large, what they want to do. I think there's a need for us to begin to hold them also to tell us something at the basic education level. We are hearing about senior high school, the tertiary, and that's good. But the basic, which is the foundation, I think there's a need for them also to be heavy on that. For the very fact that they do not vote shouldn't mean that they shouldn't be given the limelight in policy ideas that the various political parties want to come and implement. I think there's a need for them to give priority. I've been hearing generic things. We'll do this for basic, but very generic. And we feel that there are specific things that actually needed to be done, like removing the over 5,000 schools that are under 3 shares and dilapidated structure. We need to have specific information on that and how that is to be addressed, how they intend to improve STEM programs in our basic school by resourcing our schools with their STEM facilities. Very important. So for me, we may be having good intention in terms of curriculum review, but how to support the implementation of the curriculum to ensure that our learners have the effective skills. I'm not saying it. We are still having an average of primary 4 pupils that are not even meeting the minimum proficiency when it comes to literacy and numeracy. If you look at our very recent national standard test, and World Bank is telling us we determine learning poverty, each 10 students that are not able to read and write, the figure is around 80% in Sub-Saharan Africa, including Ghana. So we have a lot to do, where there may be different programs and interventions like Gallups. Again, effective implementation of those programs also has been a challenge. We have monitored, for instance, the Gallup implementation, which is supposed to provide for low-performing basic schools to catch up with their colleagues. We have noticed that there are a lot of gaps in the implementation. So there are programs, there are policies, but implementation remains a challenge.
Frankly, let's look at the beneficiaries. Why, how, and is it targeted? who must enjoy, because we know that the private schools, for example, were not included. I mean, some overtures were made to them. They were asked to fix their cost into a certain government structure, which most of them thought it didn't make sense. But the question is it mass enjoyment? Who should benefit? Who should not benefit? What do you say?
Excuse me. Well, first of all, the private sector folks, don't forget, I don't want to make a disparaging comment. But it appears to me that it is the fact that some people cannot stand this in-out joke. That's why they go to private schools. And sometimes maybe some of their grades and the cut-off point is so difficult for some of them, so they end up private schools. It's not that they wish they will go to private school. Let's establish that. It's not everybody who is in a private SHS who opted necessarily out of the public system. But who would want to enjoy freebies anyway? Even though the freebies themselves are being provided at a very decrepit level, right? I mean, the food they eat is like, I don't even know whether people who, okay, let's leave it there. But the refugees even eat better. If I saw some of the food these children are eating, it's a mess. And they're living in dormitories like mass refugees. I don't even understand this whole thing. So maybe nobody wants to go through that, they go to private sectors. The least you can do is to extend some sort of support. Because you claim that you want everybody to benefit, isn't it? You've been told time without number that you means test, you pilot, and then you can find those who are needy. You say lie. I understand the argument. And another made it to us when he commissioned us to actually study the whole free SHS policy before he became president. People don't know that. We had breakfast with him, KK, with Fema Pare, and everybody. We were commissioned to look into this. Was way while we was opposition. We did all that work and projected and said, look, by 2020, these are the numbers, and this is exactly how much it will cost. Then Nanado looked us in the face and said, guys, there's a lot of corruption in this country. I'll use those proceeds to do free SHS. You can beat that, right? We agreed with him. Go ahead. So now that people are now saying that they will review better, or they're saying that they want to expand to private schools, only from the logic of the NADU, it makes sense. People should benefit. So let everybody go through. Even though you and I know that we can means test in the face of all the difficulties that we are having right now, you means test and ensure that the money is utilized, savings are utilized for other purposes to expand infrastructure and what have you, improve infrastructure. So for me, the equity question right now is a bit moot. So now that NDC says they'll go, let's say young Konkwa, free for everybody. So that argument is not because people who are in private schools are necessarily well-to-do and they wish to be in private SHS. And you're right. The private SHS people are saying, look, per our rules, if you're not asking us to give us a cost outline, this is the minimum cost for a decent education. And they are solely right. They came to us at Imani, the private sector people. They showed us data, we judged out, and we said, you are absolutely right. This is how much it should actually cost. So the government said, we can't do that because your cost is too much. No, that's a realistic cost. So now that you are subsidizing and giving people bad food and sleeping like refugees, that's not what they want to do at free SHS. Sorry, at private SHS. So the question about equity and whatever, let's put that on the back burner right now, my good brother. Now we want to share, but you and I should be still call them out. By the way, what are you doing? Are you doing it well? Are you going to look? What I propose the government should do. I spoke to Joy yesterday on this matter, and it just came to me. I think there's a gentleman called Reginald Session Brown, young man, interesting guy. I think he was the one who got the UGMC hospital open. If you recall that guy, young, vibrant guy. He's been going on and on Facebook about the fact that there's a 15% imposition of tax on books. Come on, that's a low-hanging fruit for JM and any politician to actually look at. I would have thought that in all the things they want to support and probably ensure that people benefit universally from a policy, the sensible thing to have been done was to look at this policy and say, look, guys, we cannot have a situation in a country where students are buying books, imported books, at almost 15% paying tax. Why don't you waive that? Maybe reduce it to 2% or 1%. Why should students access educational material on the internet and be paying all these humongous taxes? We subscribe to a mailing list at Imani, and the dollar thing has made us worse off. But anytime, the next time the guys are giving me a bill, and they've added 50% in it, some funny taxes, and it's humongous money now that we pay out on a monthly basis to keep a mailing list of about 10,000. And I'm asking myself, what is this? If students cannot access educational materials because we think that transacting online is also a source of revenue, yes, but target it for students. They show an ID. There's an algorithm. There's a way to do it. They show an ID. They can get 10 to 5% bailout. That's the way to do proper planning, not to come and give everybody free this thing. It's so easy. Politicians like easy stuff. Let me tell you one thing, my good brother.
Okay.
The only presidential candidate who had done some sort of costing to his promises was my good old Uncle Dalate of present memory.
Right.
Did you know what he did?
No.
I know you don't have time. You
Tell me. No,
one.
go ahead.
Maybe
Go
we can do it next
Go ahead.
All right, the last one now, shut up. Look, Uncle Danlate, may God bless his memory. Listen, he, at the time, this was 2008, he said, look, he wants to build the economy on agriculture. And you know what he said? He will mobilize internal revenue, sources of money, to the tune of $840 billion US dollars. Listen, he was a dreamer, but at least he had some cost estimation of value, right? $840 billion US dollars yearly. So by the time a first term of his government was ended, it would have amassed about 7.2 trillion US dollars, which would have meant that at the time of exiting power, assuming he did the one term, his government or his Ghana would have been far richer than the UK economy at the time. But you know why I like that? Because he was a dreamer, and he's done it before with pushing Feed Yourself. He was dreaming, but he gave an estimation. Even my good friend Kofi Wayo, he said you grow donkeys in sufficient numbers and use the droppings, the effluence of donkeys as agricultural policy. There's an estimation. You can value the donkey effluence, put it at some cost. Others also said they'll do pipelines from here to the north for oil to be flowing everywhere. He had some value. So many people have done stuff. We need to estimate this cost, and I've heard the cost has been estimated for some of this venture current promises. But the question at the end of the day is, what is the value to the economy after all of this? I'm still asking the question, what will free SHS benefit this economy? The product of free SHS, we need to start valuing their work, their output, their addition to the economy. If nobody cannot show you that, don't believe them when they come promising you again. But first of all, what belongs to you tend to take care of. What belongs to everybody tends to fall into disrespect. The politician uses your money. The state is the greatest friction at which everybody lives at its expense. Someone said that in economics. And look, anyway, Charlie, good day.
I hear you. Franklin Kujo, we're grateful for your time this morning, President of Imani. Divine, you get in for me now, and we'll wrap up this conversation with you before we get on to Pizza Party Auntie. Now, where do we go from here? We have heard the manifesto, the youth manifesto of the NDC targeting education. I'm sure it will be expatiated later when the big manifesto comes. The MPP is here to give us theirs. Alan Tremantin has given us his. Where do we go from here? What must we be thinking as electorate before we get into that voting screen to vote?
All right. For me, it looks like we are going to see more of the freebies promises, and I wait to hear that of the MPP. I won't be surprised if they are going to be seeing some freebies in the education sector from their angles too. But we need to subject them to questions, more especially how they intend to finance some of these freebies. It's very important. We need to ask them. I know the NDC has tried well to cost their how much it costs them to implement what they are promising our students. And it's one thing to cost, but where the resources will also come from, we need to also hear from them, because we know the condition that the country is when it comes to the fiscal space. It's so much constricted. So if you are giving us freebie promises, you need to accompany that with something that is feasible in terms of how you want to support that. I've heard the NDC mentioning the GET Fund. I don't want to go deep into the GET Fund, but I think that should not be a way to look at, because GET Fund actually has a lot to do in the education sector. It is actually supposed, its main objective is to address infrastructure issues in our schools. And over the years, we have realized a trend where much of GET Fund is going into non-infrastructure projects other than the infrastructure projects that it is set up for. And that's also accounting for the huge infrastructure deficit we are seeing in the country. And so if you're going to add another non-infrastructure project, which is payment for level 100 tertiary students, it means that you're going to have little space to improve infrastructure across the country. Because even you need to improve infrastructure at the tertiary level to accommodate the number that will be coming as a result of the freebie we are promising the level 100 students. So I would advise that they shouldn't look into that direction. They should look elsewhere. There are options that are available that they can look at other than the GET Fund. I would strongly not encourage that. So the electorate, I think we need to interrogate the promises and to be able to know are they are feasible or they are not feasible. But on the whole, I think this is something that is doable if only they can able to have a financial plan that doesn't add to the debt stock of the country. And then also if they are able to subject it to fine-tuning as they have already positioned themselves that they are ready to fine-tune, that would be something that we can do.
Great. Divine Pay is a Senior Program Officer, Africa Education World. Thank you very much, Divine, for your time. We'll go now to the Zoom and have a conversation with Dr. Peter Patti-Anti. He's Executive Director, Institute of Education Studies. IFEST has joined us now on Zoom. And let's hear, first of all, the John Dramani Mahama, the NDC's flag bearer, explaining the policy, and then we'll bring Dr. Patti-Anti in.
You know, there are many cases where I've seen students who have been offered admission, but who have not been able to take their places in university because their families simply cannot afford to pay the fees. There was a case of a medical student in Upper East region who was working on the farm. He had passed with A's throughout, and he was called to medical school. But he was on the farm with his parents and couldn't go to take up his admission because he couldn't afford the fees. There are many other students like that. You think 2,500 CDs or something is small. For some families to be able to put 2,500.
That's John Dramani Mahama there. He is the flag bearer of the NDC. Dr. Patti-Anti, good morning. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, John.
Great. Now, Doc, I would have to talk to you now and ask you the simple question. Is this policy announcement a possibility?
Thank you very much, and good morning to your listeners. For me, and with the kind of work that we do in the education sector, I believe that every policy is possible and every policy is doable, provided there is commitment.
Hello, Doc.
My simple answer to your simple question. Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead, please.
Can you hear me?
So Doc, let's reach you back. The internet is not favoring us. Let's call you back. And we're trying to get that conversation wrapped up. Of course, we had Franklin Kujo of Imani Africa. We had Divine Pay of Africa Education Watch. Now we're on to a conversation with Dr. Peter Patti-Anti. Let's try and grab him on the phone so we can have that conversation with him. But Helen, across board, it does appear that these policy persons and think tank people think that it's possible to get these policies done. However, the cost is one, sustainability is two, and also who gets to benefit is three. Right? Cost, sustainability, and who gets to benefit. Those are the three big themes that I draw from what they have said. Do you get a sense that the politicians will listen?
That's a very good question. I'm not too sure, because I'm sure this isn't the first time that they would be hearing something like this. For me, what really stood out in this conversation came from Divine Pay, and he was talking about the basic level, how somehow that always seems to be lost in the conversation. And what the two main parties have told us so far, he says, seems quite generic as far as basic education is concerned. It would be good to see the same sort of verve and energy put towards basic education like we see with free SHS, and now extending to the tertiary institutions and so on and so forth. So I think I echo those sentiments. What is also happening on the basic level? Because he had some interesting stats as well to buttress that point. Only some 13 to 15% Wi-Fi, or should I say internet connectivity on the basic level. By the time they've passed out, graduated, entered the GHS, free SHS, what type of foundation are they taking over there? I think he mentioned the UN, and they said that in our part of Africa, children aged 10 and below don't seem to have the proper reading and writing skills, and that for me is very alarming. So I think the conversation, we need to take it to the basic level and also find out what the politicians want to do to strengthen that side, because by the time they come to the free SHS, we see what is already happening. Is the foundation strong? A lot is lacking. Exactly so.
Peter Patianti joins us now. Dr. Peter Patianti of IFS. Doc, thank you for your time one more time. Now you said that it's possible to be done, but then you were adding some more flesh on that answer. Let's hear you.
Yeah, so I was saying that if you have the commitment, you will be able to do everything so far as you are in government and you control the state coffers. The point is that, and that is why normally when it comes to some of these discussions to set ambitious policies, I don't want to have the conversation about where will you get the money from, because politicians or governments are able to get the money to do things that they want to do, and you know it when it comes to the various corrupt issues that you have been protecting on your studios.
Right.
You know that when they want to do something, they find the ways to do it.
That's correct.
So we have to now the discussion to, is this the most effective usage of our scarce resources? Is it the most effective usage of the little money that we have? And that is where I feel that we should take this conversation to, because you stay in opposition for almost 8 years. You have seen the challenges of implementing the free senior high school the way they have done, and you have the benefit of all the issues that have arisen because they decided to go by a wholesale model of financing the policy. And we have had this conversation about why don't you allow others, those who have the ability to pay, and then you support those who cannot pay. Then you have a very nice opportunity to help those who want to access tertiary education. I agree with the former president. It is true that a lot of people gain admission and they are not able to go to tertiary institutions because they can't pay. So the ability to pay is or affordability is a big problem, and we all agree. But can we say that if you take 100 people, would we be confident enough to say that all the 100 people will not be able to pay? How many of the students, even on campus, access students' loan, and how many of them do not access students' loan? So if you have this nice idea, and you have seen the challenges of the free senior high school, and you have also told us that you are not so sure of the current state of affairs because we might be in a very difficult situation than we have been projected to us, and you would, when you come to power, you will open the books for all of us to know the state of the country's finances. You do not make such a promise that will add burden to the already struggling economic situation that we have in this country. There is a way to go around this, and the way to go around this is to let those who get admission and cannot afford to pay the admission fees apply and get assistance from whatever institution that we will put up. Student loan trust is there. So that amount of money that we want to raise to do this particular policy, you can put that money to the student loan trust. If I get admission, all that you need to do is to rearrange the student loan trust in such a way that a student gets admission, he presents his admission letter and other details. He is giving the funds, or the loan trust pays the money to the institution. If you do this and you have 100 people and 40 of them are being supported by you, you have 60 who can pay. That amount that could have been used to pay the 60 can now be used to do other things within the same education sector, and we have achieved the same result. Why do you want to repeat the mistakes of the implementation of the free SHS, which we have all said has not been profitable and fruitful and doesn't make economic sense in terms of education funding? I don't really understand how our politicians think in election years. I'm seriously disappointed in this line of thought coming from the opposition party that has studied the challenges of education sector for 8 years at the fringes and now want to prefer or give solutions to the numerous challenges, and they intend to make the same mistakes that the current government is making in the education sector.
So in plain terms, do you support their policy or do you not support the policy?
I support the policy so far as it's not going to be a waste of resources, so far as it's going to help those who need to be provided financial assistance to get the financial assistance. I will not support the policy if it is wholesale, like how we are doing the CSHS. It is going to compound the challenges at the tertiary level. Government subventions don't go early, so it means that going to run the university is going to be even more difficult than it is now. And I don't think that if they really sit with the administrators of the various public tertiary institutions, they would even agree to such a policy.
Now, in terms of reach and spread, we're also looking at not doing an OPU free, or if you like, all play or all for all, but people who can afford maybe should not be the ones benefiting from it. Do you get a sense that we have what capacity it takes and the system to be able to determine who can pay and who cannot pay, so that we don't do a cover for all thing?
Interestingly, we have had these debates with the free senior high school. For the tertiary institution, it's even easier, and that is why I'm not even talking about means testing. Because when you bring that in, then you are going into each areas that the politicians will come and tell you that you don't have the data and so on and so forth. So all that I'm saying is that if you get admission, you feel you cannot pay. And we know these people, we see them on social media. They call us, they ask for funds. And these people will definitely want to access the student loan. The reason why the student loan has not been effective is that by the time the student loan comes, the admission process has passed, and sometimes they are even in their second semester. So any government that really wants to solve that problem of enabling people access tertiary education, like it's done in most other places, you gain admission, there are financial assistance available. You apply with all the relevant documents indicating how needful you are. And then the loan trust or whatever body, I don't subscribe to the idea of setting a different body. You use the same loan trust, would go in and then pay the money that you require to the institution that you have been admitted to. And I think that if we do this, we'll be able to get those who really need the help to get the help that they need. And we will get more of these people to access tertiary education, improve tertiary education enrollment ratio, and then we'll be able to now use the knowledge and other things that they are gaining in the education that they are being offered to develop the country. We should not go on another level of wastage where we are going to pay for everybody. Meanwhile, those people, and Johnny, let me even throw this one in.
Mm-hmm.
You are proposing that you are going to extend free senior high school to private schools, which I agree, basically because I think it's one of the things that we can do to eliminate the double track. But then when you come to the tertiary and you are doing your free level 100 thing, you say that you are dealing with only public universities. Does this mean any sense of consistency? So I think that these things, for staying out for almost 7 years, we were expecting something very robust, something very serious, something very concrete that will address the teaching challenges of our education sector, and not something populist like just paying fees for just anybody and then getting the applause, and then at the end of the day we will get back to the same challenges that we are having.
Do I get a sense that you are disappointed in the NDC, John Mahama, and the youth wing for bringing out this in this fashion?
I would
still want to wait and read the final manifesto of the education of the NDC and then focus on the education sector. But so far as this particular singular policy is concerned, the 3-level 100 admission something, I'm disappointed because they should know better, especially learning from the challenges of the free senior high school. I'm disappointed these states have come from them because most of the platforms that we have been with them against the MP, they have supported the position of civil society organizations about not doing a free-for-all, that's how you call it, or wholesale funding of our education. So what happened is that all of a sudden you come out and then you say that you are going to repeat the same mistakes we have criticized for the past 7 years. It's not at all.
Peter Patianti, I thank you very much indeed for your time, Doc. We're grateful, as always.
Welcome, Johnny.
Thank you very much. That's Peter Patianti there, joining us on Sunrise on 3FM 92.7. And a lot of people are migrating to escape from poverty. Did I say doctor? Madam Samira Baumia, she said this 6 years ago. Listen.
Migration has been a part of human experience forever. Many of us here present may have moved across communities, states, even countries or continents at some point in our lives. In recent times, the issue of migration has drawn increasing attention around the world.